Hello again, welcome back you guys. Today what we're going to be doing is kind of a continuation on what we did the last computer build. Last time what I did was I built a brand new PC using the existing case that I already had. And I kind of talked about things that I had removed all the older parts out of there and saved them for a later time. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them yet. What I've decided I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those older parts and I'm going to build a new computer for my daughter. I went ahead and I bought a new case. The case that I got for her was the EVGA DG-77. Everything that's going to be going in here is all the old components out of my computer. She's just going to get a refresh off of what she has. The computer that she's running right now is a really old Athlon processor. It does okay for the games that she plays. She doesn't play a whole lot of really graphic intensive games, but she loves playing Minecraft. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that she's got something that she can run Minecraft for now and in the future. And if she wants to, she can run it in HDR as well. One thing I did do, I got a really good deal over at Sam's Club. They have a really good special going this week for Black Friday, you guys, on some computer monitors. What I got was a 32-inch Samsung curved monitor. It is full high def. It has a display port, which was really important to me. I wanted to make sure that I had her future-proofed to the extent that I can. Future-proof being display port, not HDMI. Display port does a lot higher quality, in my opinion, a lot faster bandwidth. So to kind of carry on with that, the monitor itself is a white bezel to kind of match the white of the new computer case that I got her. This computer case comes from EVGA with the glass side panels here. These are actually tempered glass, not plastic. So it's got the tempered glass side, front, and the other side as well as tempered glass. It does come with 4 case fans pre-mounted, one in the back, one at the top, 2 in the front. None of them are RGB fans. They're just plain old Jane fans. So one of the things I'm going to be doing, I had a couple spare fans that I was not using from my case originally. I went with all purple lighting in my case. The case that I had came with these 2 fans that are actually white bladed fans. They have the white LEDs in here, which I thought would really match this case well. So once I get these mounted, I'm going to replace the 2 front fans with these 2 fans here, so that way it gives a nice white glow through the front here. This is opaque glass, so I've got to take this glass off anyways to do this build, so I'm going to show you really fast. What's nice is these are all held together by thumb screws, so disassembly is really fast on this. One thing I really do like on this, I'm going to show you when I take this panel off, is the way that this, I guess my dog's over there getting upset at me and whining because I'm doing another computer build. But the way that this is held on, as you can see, this is opaque glass, but if I hold it up to the light, it is see-through. So you'll be able to see the fans and the fan color through that. One thing I like is these mounts that slip through that glass, that's actually rubberized. So that way it prevents vibration issues. It also helps to protect that glass, so when you're putting it on and off, you don't have a chance to chip up that little round part on the inside. One thing I've noticed with some of the glass panels, when people are mounting them, repeated, putting them on, removing them, putting them on, removing them, it starts getting little chips in them. And it doesn't really affect the performance of it, but it just starts to look trashy. So that was a really cool feature that I liked. Also, this has got a removable dust cover here, little dust filter. So this is cleanable. You can wash this. You can spray it off. I don't think it's dishwasher safe, so I wouldn't recommend putting it in the dishwasher. But running it under the sink, clean it off, letting it dry, perfectly fine. Again, here's those 2 front fans that it came with. They're 120 millimeter fans. You can see that they're just plain Jane 120 millimeter fans, nothing fancy. What I'm going to be replacing them with are these. They're 240 millimeter fans. So if you look at that, they're quite a bit larger. So they'll push a lot more air through here at a slower fan speed. Good thing about that, more airflow, number 1. Number 2, since it's lower fan speed, less noise. So not only are they lighted so they'll look pretty nice, but they'll be quieter as well. When I do put these in here, these are set up right now. You can see it'll hold up to 3 of the 120 millimeters. It'll also, it's made to be able to fit a 360 millimeter radiator. So if you wanted to water cool, you can put a 360 rad in here. Or you can put a 480 millimeter, which is 280 millimeter, not 480, 280 millimeter, which is 2 of the 140 millimeter fans radiator on here, which is what I run in my computer. So, I mean, at a later date, maybe, when she gets more advanced, upgrade it at a later time or something, or I upgrade mine and I pass my radiator down to her. I'd water cool it at a later time, but for now, she's perfectly good with just the fans for cooling. She doesn't, like I said, she doesn't run super graphic intensive games. The most graphic intensive that she does run is Minecraft, so she should be fine with this. I'm going to go ahead and finish the disassembly here. Now, all these glass panels do have a plastic covering on them right now. I'm going to leave that intact until I get ready to button this all up when I'm done, just to keep the glass safe and to keep it from getting scratched up at all. I don't want to take any chances. Not that I think I'm going to get scratched up, but you know what they say, better safe than sorry. Now again, there's the 3 tempered glass panels, the 2 side panels, the front, and then there's a rear cover as well. My only complaint I think I have about this case is that while the inside is, it looks like it's aluminum, the rear cover and the top cover are plastic. So that's probably my only complaint against this case, is it makes it feel somewhat cheap, even though it is a really good quality case. I believe these retail for about $150, just depending on which model you go with. Now this model that I have here, the DG-77, this one happens to have an extra feature to it. Okay, am I caught up on there? There we go. Catching up on something on the edge there. This one comes with an extra feature that most cases don't have, and that is what's located in this black bag. What this is a deal that relocates the graphics card. So instead of your graphics card being mounted on the main board on a horizontal position like this plugs into the main board instead and relocates the slot down to the bottom of this case. I'll actually locate it down to this position right here. And what that'll do is, once this is in place, it'll be something like this, and that graphics card will now stand vertically instead of horizontally. That way, if you have a really nice graphics card, it's a nice way to be able to show it off. Performance-wise, I don't really think it affects performance very much. From what I've seen, the cable doesn't really affect the actual throughput of the graphics card itself or the slot, so I'm not worried about that. The cooling-wise on it, I think relocating like that, it pulls it away from the main board, so it keeps the heat source away from the main board, so I think it'll help keep the main board a little cooler. I haven't seen any numbers on anything that really suggests it does anything to help that, other than aesthetics. So I'm not worried too much about cooling or anything else, especially like I said, she doesn't run super high graphics, but I'm going to enable it to where she can in the future. So she's going to have a pretty decent setup here. One thing I did notice about this also, like I said, that back panel here that comes off, it's just plastic. It's, in my opinion, rather cheap. You really don't have to have it on this case. I don't believe, looking at the back panel, it looks like any other one. So I think it's more for just looks. Same as the top. The top is just plastic, but it is very difficult to get off. I was looking at it, and the way this comes off is it's actually push pins, and they're very stiff. And that is one thing I will admit that I don't really care for very much, is those push pins. As you can see, they're just little metal, like little spreading fingers type. They go in here and they pop in place. It's very difficult to get off, and with this being plastic, I could see over time that causing some issues and just generally having a good chance of cracking, breaking, just wearing out, and I'm not a big fan of that. But that is one thing you do have to remove in order to access these top fans. It does have on here, if you can see it in the light there, a nice screen, helps keep the dust out. It's not a perfect dust filter. It's not a really, really fine one, but it's better than nothing. It also helps keep debris from falling in the top of the case and falling into the fans. So that's more important to me than anything. Like I said, on the top here again, we just have a generic case fan, just standard black case fan. It's fine for now. I'm not worried about anything super fancy looking. What I am going to do is these two front fans, I'm going to relocate to these two empty spots here and put those two 140 millimeter fans in. So that's going to be my first step today. That's going to help take care of this, keep it cool. I am going to put them in an exhaust configuration. That way I'm exhausting out the top and the back with those two 140 millimeters pulling in. It should create a negative case pressure, which is a good thing. That does tend to keep the inside of the case cooler. It does also cause more dust in there, but I think with the dust filters on here, that'll keep that to a minimum. Positive case pressure will help keep the dust out, but it does cause higher temperatures inside your case. Now, I think we're going to be perfectly fine though. I'll measure temperatures after I get all done, and if I need to, I might swap one of these case fans to an inlet. That way it kind of helps push cold air in. What I'm afraid of though is having those front ones pulling in and a top one pulling in. It's going to interfere with the airflow. And I don't want to cause major disruptions inside. I just want to keep the air flowing nice and smoothly through here. So we'll work on it from there. We'll see how it goes. If we have any issues, we'll figure it out later time, and I'll make a new video on that if I do have problems with it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and get started by relocating these fans. This won't take very long, so this should be a pretty quick thing. Like I said, there's not a whole lot to this. Once you remove that front of the case and the dust filter, it's pretty straightforward getting into these fans. It's not like there's anything blocking your way or preventing anything after that, so that's one thing I will say is very nice about this case. Oops. Help if I get that fan orientation correct, doesn't it? And I talked about having it exhausting, and I set it up so it's pulling in. Alright, let's get that. That's going this way here. Now, when I get these screws put in, I'm not going to tighten them down all the way, for the simple fact that I want to make sure that once I get the third fan in here, that there is the correct spacing. One thing that I do see is going to be an issue is the wiring for the top panel here. The top of this case has your buttons, your standard power button, reset button, has a couple of USB ports. It also has a K-boost button, where what that is there's some software that EVGA provides with this case that automatically overclocks your video card and your supposedly your CPU. What it does, it keeps it in the P state on the video card, the performance state, so that way it doesn't downclock, it stays overclocked automatically and doesn't budge from there. That's nice if you're doing a lot of gaming or benchmarking and you just want to keep it steady. You don't want to have any fluctuation because that will affect scores. But for heat wise and wear and tear on the card, it's not necessarily a great thing. So I probably will not use the P-State, the K-Boost on her computer. It'll be enabled, but I don't think I'm ever going to have her push the button. She doesn't need it. So when she gets more advanced, that'll be sometime where I'll explain to her what it does, and she can go from there. It'll be her computer to use. But one thing I did notice was at the top here, if you notice where this circuit board is and those connections, there's a lot of wiring here, and I can see that that's going to hit on that fan. It's going to be hitting right up against this wiring. I'm not a big fan of that. I think that's kind of a bad design there. I'm going to try to move this wiring over if I can and keep it more pulled to the side. That way it's out of the way. I might have to manipulate some of this wiring a little bit and try to keep it all bundled over to the side. But that way I can keep it at least out of the fan blades. I don't want anything hitting the fan blades on her, especially if she's playing a game and all of a sudden she hears it hitting a fan blade. It's going to probably scare her. She is quite young and I don't want her to think the computer is blowing up on her. Again, I do apologize on the workspace here. I am a little space challenged, so just using the air hockey table. It does make a good surface because it is rather large, so I have plenty of space to work with here, which helps. I think when I put this in here, undo this twist tie. I'm going to move these cables over and out of the way. I'm going to keep this stuff, if I can, as far away from those fan blades, like I said, as possible. Now when I run this wire here to this case fan, I'm going to try to run it next to the other fan. So that way it keeps the orientation close to the mainboard and it helps to pull these fan blades away from those wires a little bit. Now I'm going to go ahead and tighten this fan down, just for the simple fact that it is in place and I don't have to worry about adjusting it at all. And it looks like everything's kind of matching up here really good on these fans. There's no gap, there's no issues with them overlapping each other or anything, so that's a good part. So I'm going to tighten this other one down too while I'm at it. I want to make sure that I have these nice and snug, so that way I have no vibration issues whatsoever. Last thing I want is to get this thing fully built and have a fan vibration. Trying to chase down, that's never any fun. Now this case does come with plenty of screws, so it's got all the screws you could ever need for these case fans, so you won't have to worry about stuff, which is very handy. The bundle of wires here that comes with this, it's got your standard USB plug, your HD audio plug, your standard power reset, hard drive light plugs, all that. It does have a plug for your USB 3.0. These are USB 3.0 plugs at the top. And if you notice, it has a serial ATA powered plug on it as well. What this is for is it's for this control unit. This is for your RGB lighting. So as you get lighting in the case, whether it be strips, fans, you can run it all to this controller here and everything's controlled through it. You can download the software, run your custom lighting that you want, and it makes the hookup a lot easier. But it also controls this logo here that lights up, and on the front, this EVGA logo that lights up as well. Now that's going to be under that tempered glass, so that's going to give a really cool look to it. I kind of can't wait to see it. I think that's going to be really neat. So now we've got those fans relocated. Now what I need to do, come over here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install these two 140 millimeter fans. Now again, make sure you have the orientation correct. If you look at most of these fans, they'll usually have, I say usually, of course, I get the one fans that don't have it on them. A lot of times they'll have an arrow on here to kind of show you what direction that fan spins, and the direction of airflow, so that you know what way it's going. Now I can look at the fan and tell you the way these blades turn is they turn in the direction of the blade. So it curves this way, it's going to turn in that direction, which turning in that direction is going to force the air out of the back of the fan here. Another way to tell is normally this is considered the back of the fan, the little holder for the actual motor for the fan, and that usually will tell you what direction the air will come out as well. Same with these fans here. The fan blades spin and it pushes it out the top, and it's got those little protectors on there. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of these ones. I think they're rather plain. I wish they would have, for the case itself, for the build quality, they should have included some RGB fans on there. In my opinion, I think that would have been better for the company to do that. It would have looked a lot nicer, and I really think it would have been just an overall better design. But that's just my opinion. My opinion doesn't always matter, so not that big of a deal. Now, I do want to make sure that I get these fans oriented so that way I can get coverage on here, and I think what I'm going to have to do is do one here and one towards the bottom here. That's going to be about as close together as I'm going to have them, and it's going to have a gap in between, which again is not that big of a deal, but I can't really get it any higher here and still have good coverage. I might be able to get it up here, get this one mounted down here, and leave the bottom of the fan, leave the bottom under here uncovered, which is only going to be towards the power supply. I'm going to attempt that first, and we'll see if it works out. If it doesn't, I can always adjust it after that. That's not that big a deal. That's only something that takes a couple of minutes to do, so I'll know here rather quickly. Like I said, the case here does come with quite a lot of connectors, and it's got some zip ties that it came with, which is a nice addition, and a lot of screws. Okay, so these are the fan screws that you're going to need. The rest of these are your standard hard drive screws, your screws for your video card, your other add-in cards, and then your motherboard standoffs, which has already got standoffs in the case itself that are pre-installed, and it looks like it's got standard ATX on there. So when I go to put my mainboard in there, I'll make sure everything matches up, but I'm pretty confident that it will. Just looking at it, I've done enough of these that it looks like it's a standard ATX layout, standard full-size ATX, so I shouldn't have to worry about it. So let's go ahead and get these installed first. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to snug this down just a hair. So I want to install this top one. I'm going to try to keep this pushed upwards as far as I can. Just try to give myself as much space for that second fan as I can. Like I said, I want to try to get both of them mounted right here to keep most of that air pointed towards the CPU and the actual main board. I'm not as worried about the power supply. The power supply on this case is actually going to be mounted with the fan pointed down. And when I go to mount that power supply, I'll show you why. So now comes the moment of truth. Will this fit? Yes, I think that's going to be the perfect way to mount these. Now again, you have other options on how to mount these, but I want to do it this way to keep most airflow possible pointed towards that main board. I just want to make sure we don't have any issues, don't run into problems, that everything's good to go. Just trying to check it, make sure everything's lining up right. Alright, everything looks good inside here. Wire-wise inside, everything looks pretty good. Again, I just want to make sure everything is kind of tucked up and over. Keep anything from hitting this fan blade possibly. So we are good to go there. Okay, so that's the fans. Those are now installed there. I'm not going to worry about running the cables quite yet. Just making sure I don't have any issues with clearance. I think the way that I'm going to run these cables is through these holes here where the hard drive cages are. Try to run those through there and around kind of through to the main board to where the wires are as hidden as possible. With this being a white case on the inside, those black wires are really going to show no matter what I do, so I'm just trying to keep them as clean as I can. I don't want to have any issues where it just looks trashy. Even though this computer is for my daughter, I still want to take and keep it as nice looking as possible. Whether I do a build for myself or somebody else, I always try to keep my builds looking clean and professional, but that way if anybody sees them, they fully represent my skills and my feelings towards it, rather than try to rush through and make it look kind of janky, you know. Alright, well, let me take and next I'm going to go ahead and install the main board. Now this is not the case for the main board. This again is the box from my old main board, which was my new main board. My new one is the ASUS Crosshair 8 Hero. What I'm putting in her computer is the ASUS Crosshair 5. Which is my old main board. It is running an AMD FX processor. It's the 4170. I've actually got, when I took this off my computer, I left the CPU and the memory already installed, so I wouldn't have to worry about losing it or damaging it, possibly bending a pin or something on the processor. Alright, so I've already cleaned this up. I removed the old thermal paste off here. What I use is Arctic Silver 5. So cleanup is usually pretty easy, just some rubbing alcohol, Q-tip, cleans it up really nice. It's DDR3 2400. This is 16 gigs, so it's two 8 gig sticks. So she's going to have a pretty good setup here. The processor itself is the AMD 4170, I believe. I don't think it tells you on here. No, it doesn't. I believe it comes clocked. It's like 4.2 gigahertz, I think it is. And I know underwater I had it overclocked to about 4.8 gigahertz. And that held really steady, no issues whatsoever. She's going to be going on air for now, so I'm not going to overclock it like I did. I may just run some performance tests and do a slight overclock up to 4.4, maybe 4.5, just to make sure that she has good performance. If she doesn't have any issues, I may just leave it stock as well. It just depends on how it performs overall. These weren't the fastest chips. They weren't terrible, but they're not an Intel Pentium, and they're definitely not the new AMD Ryzens. Those do a lot better. Eventually, she'll get an upgrade, but it's going to be quite a ways down the road. For now, she doesn't need anything more than this. So I'm not too worried about it. This is a really good board. This is a Republic of Gamers board, so they use premium components on these. It has pretty much everything you could ever want on a board for its time. It doesn't have USB Type-C, but it does have USB 3.0 slots and 2.0 slots. It also has standard Ethernet. It's only one Ethernet connection though, unlike a lot of the newer boards that come with two. So that is one kind of downfall, is it's only one Ethernet port. But again, she doesn't need anything more than that. It does have the Supreme FX X-Fi 2 sound built into it. So it's got a very good sound card built into the board, so I'm not going to worry about upgrading that. It does also support Rod Connect, which was an extra feature that you could use to connect to the board to tweak things, monitor. I never invested in it. I never really saw anybody investing in it. I don't think it was really that popular. I don't know of anybody really that used it, other than maybe in a professional setting, but still at that, I don't really, in my opinion, feel it was anything really important. That's why I don't believe the newer boards even come with it. This one did support 4 PCI Express slots. We're only going to use one. I don't need anything bigger than that on this for her. The video card that she's going to have is going to be plenty for one slot. It was my old card. She's getting a NVIDIA GeForce 980 Titanium. So she's going to have a pretty beefy card. No issues with that, I don't believe, so not worried. It does have 7 of your serial ATA ports. It also supports external serial ATA right up here. So I could hook up an external serial ATA drive. I don't need it. She's for now going to be running just one drive. It's going to be a Peony solid state drive. It's a 480 gig. At a later time, I may get her another drive for storage, just because I know with some of the newer games coming out, they can really suck up hard drive space really fast. So I don't want her having issues where she suddenly runs out of space, because she doesn't really think about hard drive space right now. She just installs. So I do worry about that, but not right away. It's something I'll monitor, and as I need to, I'll address it when it comes to that problem. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install her CPU cooler, and what I'm going to use is I'm actually going to use the air cooler from my AMD Ryzen. I decided to go with water cooling on my computer. Since I already had it, I just stuck with it, and it does a really, really thorough job of keeping my computer cool, so I'm really happy with that. But I figure with her new case here, she's got those white LEDs up front on that on those fans, which is going to be really neat, and I think that's going to look really nice for her. And then I'm going to install this cooler, which is the Wraith cooler, because it does come with RGB addressable fan and lighting on there. So I'm going to hook that into that control panel, and we'll have that all set up for her so that she can have a little bit of lighting in there and some color. I'll probably set it up in a rainbow effect or whatever her favorite color might be. This does come with thermal paste already installed on here. However, I'm not a real big fan of the thermal paste they use. So what I'm going to do is add a little bit of Arctic Silver. I don't want to use a ton of Arctic Silver, just enough to add to it. Now again, be really careful with the Arctic Silver. It supposedly is not conductive, but being that it does have silver particles in it, I still want to be careful because I don't want that all over my main board. I could see that shorting something out, and then that would be a really big issue, and I would not be very happy with that. Now the way that this hooks up, I'm trying to think of the best way to run this cable, because if I put it this way, I think that'll be the best orientation, honestly. I mean, I'm trying to think of the best orientation, but I really do think that's going to be the best way. So we'll stick with that. You get that snapped into place there. Make sure that's seated pretty good. And then it's just a flip of the detent there. Holds that cooler in place. It's nice and steady. Get this dog hair off the board there. One bad thing about having two Huskies. Whew, there's dog hair everywhere. Even places you wouldn't imagine it getting. Now to install the lighting itself, it has these little dust covers here that come off on the bottom. That's what covers up these addressable header pins. Now, I gotta remember on this fan, I'm gonna look at this really quick and make sure I have the correct way to install this. I have not done very much with the RGB, so I'm not 100% sure. So let me check this really quick and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. I just had to look this up really quick. Like I said, I have not had a whole lot of experience with these RGB headers, so I was not 100% sure of which one of these cables to use and how it hooks up on here, or how I was even going to hook it up on this board. Now this board does not natively control RGB, so that's why I'm going to be connecting it into the RGB controller up here at the top of the case. That way everything is controlled through the case, and it'll be a little bit easier to manage. Now you can hook this up one of two ways. It's got a USB header here that I can connect it to and hook into the actual main board, and then download the software from AMD and control the lighting that way. But what I'm going to opt to instead is using the RGB header controller cable here. So what this does is this actually will plug into this controller board and plug into this port here on the side of the fan. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to unwrap it for now. I want to test it for fitment just to make sure that I don't have any issues with it fitting in there. And that fits pretty good. Alright, so everything fits there really well. I'm not going to have to worry about anything. I'm not going to put this header on here yet. I'm going to get this board installed first, and then I'll plug that header in and route it up. I don't want it to be in my way while I'm trying to install this. This is kind of one of those things that's not super important right at this second. So I'm going to install that first, and then from there we'll pick back up and we'll continue with the installation. So I'll see you in just a second. Alright, so what I did was, for time's sake, I went ahead and installed that main board. As you can see here, I was correct. Those standoffs that were pre-installed on here were set up for a full-size ATX, so it did fit perfectly fine. I didn't have to adjust any of those at all. I got that all screwed in here. I went ahead and connected the fan headers as well. That way I could get that done and over with. One less thing to have to worry about. I also ran the RGB header over to the CPU fan. I got that routed in here as clean as I could. I also hooked up the USB 3.0 connector. There's a USB 2.0 connector as well, which is what runs the that'll connect this the RGB controller to the software, and the HD audio, and all the front connectors as well. The front HDD light, reset pin, power connector, all that is connected up now. On the back here, I went ahead and zip tied up most of the cabling here. My only complaint about the front HD audio is the cable for it is really short. Normally I can run it down, over and up, but it's way too short for that. It would not allow me to do that, so I had to go across, which right now is not a big deal, but it does cross. If you see these 4 panels here, these are actually what you can connect your drives to. So these are for the 2.5 inch drives, these are for the 3.5 inch drives. Right now it's not really affecting anything. Even if I got a 2.5 inch drive on here, it's still not really going to affect it much, but it's the principle of it. I really didn't want it there, but it'll work. It'll have to do. One thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is connect up that serial ATA drive. I originally was going to put it here, but I really don't want it to be affected at all by that cable. So I'm probably going to go ahead and mount it over here instead. The way this works is it has a thumb screw, holds this bracket in place. Now this drive will get screwed onto this bracket like so, and the bracket will get reinstalled on there, and that's what's going to hold this to the actual case. It's nice because you don't have to worry about a hard drive cage. Your older cases, if you guys remember right, you had a hard drive cage that everything slid into, and then you had your cage for your DVD drives or a floppy drive if you had one. If you notice anything about this case, it does not have a space on here for any type of optical drive. So this is the way that everything is going now. There's no optical drives anymore, no need for a DVD drive, CD drive. Everything is going to USB drives. So take it as you may. Some people don't like that. They like having the option of having an optical drive. I know myself, I do, because I do have a lot of DVD movies and a lot of the CDs I listen to. My daughter, on the other hand, has no use for it, so I'm not as concerned. So not a big deal. But I'm going to go ahead and get this installed. Like I said, this case comes with a ton of screws. So it's got all the hard drive screws that you need. I believe it's got enough on here to connect all 4 drives up if you needed to. So if you had 2 full-size hard drives and 2 of your 2.5 inch drives. Now when you go to connect this, there's 4 mounting holes. On the bottom of your drive there are 4 holes, or on the side there's holes as well if you're doing a standard cage mount. Being that we're not, I'm just going to go ahead, screw it into place here. One thing about having big fingers, it's not very fun with small screws. I'm going to try to make life a little easier and set it down.
Sorry.
Apologize, my assistant there isn't feeling 100% right now, so her throat's kind of been bothering her. So don't mind the voice behind the curtain. Ignore the curtain. You see nothing. Hear nothing. She is the great and powerful. Anyone who's married knows the wife is the great and powerful. Alright, so we're almost done here. 2 screws left. One. Just for vibration reasons, I want to make sure. Now that is one thing I will say about this case as I was hooking things up. I have some complaints with the way some of the spacing and the routing is done in this case. When I was hooking up those RGB control header cables to this control board, it was really hard to get in there. I I'm going to take a shot of it here in a second to kind of show you. But the way that they have that in there, there is so much going on in the way, especially with the third fan there. It is extremely difficult to really get in there with your fingers and do anything. I mean, you've got to have some super tiny fingers to do much of anything in there. And it's, in my opinion, kind of ridiculous. I don't care for it very much. So I will say I would grade the case down for that one reason, if anything. Okay, I want to make sure that that's nice and tight. Being that it's a solid state drive, you're not going to have anything moving in there, so you're not going to have vibration issues with that. But that leads me to one of my complaints about these connectors for your mechanical hard drives. If you can hear that, there is room to have that vibrate, so when that drive spins up, you can have some vibration issues. They should have included some little pads or something underneath this just to cut down on the vibration. I don't think it's that big of an issue, but it could be if you have a really fast, like a 7200 RPM drive, or even, you know, one of the really fast SCSI drives. It could really cause some vibration issues in there. I mean, if you listen to this case, it's got some vibration issues, especially with these back covers for your add-on cards. They're not the tightest fit in there, so you could run into some vibration issues in the long run. We'll see when I get everything hooked up what we have. If I need to, I'll add some little felt pads in there or something to help with the vibration. For now, we'll see. Okay? So we have that hooked up. Again, I'm not going to run the cable quite yet for the power. That's going to be my next one of my next steps here. I am, however, going to go ahead and grab that serial ATA connector, and we're going to go ahead and run this for now. Trying to see the best way to run this. I think what I'm going to end up doing is grabbing a different cable, because normally I'll use these right angle ones to connect onto the back of that drive to give it a nice clean sharp angle, but in this case I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. It's not going to allow me to, and both of these cables that I have are both right angle. So that was one of the reasons I kept this box from my new motherboard, is it had all sorts of extra cables and stuff in here, which will definitely come in handy. Let's see here. Okay, there's right angle, right angle, and even the nodes that came in here are right angles. Go figure. So, thankfully, through the magic of cameras, I have more cables in my supply. So I will be right back and we'll pick right back up. Okay, so told you I had plenty of extra cables here. I went ahead and grabbed one here, plugged in. Now where we're routing it to is right over here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this cable, and seeing that I already had to run this audio cable over here, I'm going to run it right next to it here. Right up and over into my connector. Now, there's not really a set order of what you have to connect this to. You can connect it pretty much any of these that you want to. I'm going to go ahead and connect it into the serial ATA connector 1. Like I said, there is a total of 7 serial ATA connectors here. There's 6 on the side, then there's one that's a vertical. It's supposed to be for another external, and then another external on the back here, so a total of 8 actually, but 6 or 7 of them right here. So I'm connecting into position 1 right there, and then what I'll do is I'll end up zip tying this in with this wire bundle to make it look nice and pretty, keep it neat looking. But I'll do that in a moment. What I am going to do right now is go ahead and connect this riser cable in. This is for the video card. Like I said, the video cards normally you would mount it horizontally in here and it would stick out the back of the case and it would run right here. With this cable being here, normally that's going to hit that cable and it's going to be a real pain in the butt. I don't have to worry about that cable now. That's one of the things that's going to be awesome about this riser. Also, it's going to give a nice vertical orientation to that card. Makes it look a little nicer. You can actually see the card in all its glory, and I mean, those cards are really beautiful, and it's unfortunate that all you ever see is just the side of the card. So this is going to give a nice view of the card, make it look really, really nice, and it's going to be the first time I'm ever going to actually be able to use one of these. So I'm really looking forward to this. We've got that cable locked in place. Now that's going to come down here and screw in. And I've already got 2 screws to set to the side for that. So I'm going to go ahead, screw this into place. Now, be careful how tight you take this down. This is a circuit board, so rule of thumb, you can crack it. Be careful, you don't want to ruin it. If you start hearing crunching sounds, please, for the love of God, stop. Just making sure this is tight enough. Don't have to worry about coming loose with that video card. Give it a little tug, we're good. That cable lays nicely. Don't have to worry about any issues with that. Now, that does cover up these other slots, so by all means, if you're running SLI, don't use a reorientation cable like this. It'll be about impossible to try to run SLI with one of these, but I'm not really wanting to find out. So, the one thing when you do that, this panel, which is normally the cover for these screws to keep everything in here from coming loose, does need to be replaced because this is actually where your video card is now going to stick out of. So what you do, remove these 2 screws. That panel falls off, obviously. Probably not what you really want to do, but oops. And now the new panel goes in place. Okay, and what this is going to do is hold that video card. Now I've got to try to figure out how exactly this works because I know this pries off here. I guess I'll go ahead and take that off now. And that video card will stick out the back. Now, that's one of the main selling features on this version of this case is this relocation for the video. So EVGA, if you're listening, please add that to your description, along with maybe thinking of reorientate where this controller card is. Maybe instead of it being at the top here, have it come out the front here. Might make it a little easier, or even mount it in the bottom. There's plenty of space in the bottom down here. I mean, good Lord, there's tons of space. It looks like they've got it set up so you can put a water cooling pump down here. There are screw holes so you can mount that. Again, in the future, if I do a custom loop or something, that could be something I think about, but there's a lot better places that this controller could have been mounted, even on this side panel right here coming off the back. A lot of better, easier places to get to where you don't have a bunch of fans in the way or a bunch of other cables. So, just my suggestion. Now that, next thing we're going to connect is this power supply. Now this is kind of a different setup on this power supply because I haven't seen it done like this before, but the way that they have this is all open. If you notice, there's no normal mounting bracket on the back here for your power supply. Normally you put your power supply in from the inside and slide it forward. This one you don't. It actually has your mounting bracket separate. So what you do is you slide your power supply in and then put the bracket in place. So it's kind of different, but we'll go with it. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go ahead and get that power supply mounted in here and the bracket in place, and I'll pick back up once I do that to try to save some time. Okay guys? Okay guys, welcome back. As you can see, I'm wearing something different. It's the next day. We decided to call it a night last night. Just got too late trying to work on this. Normally building these, it doesn't take me very long to do, but trying to do this while I'm instructing and trying to figure things out, especially with the new case and how I'm going to route things, took me a little longer than normal. So we called it a night last night after I got that power supply in. I did get that power supply in here. What I did find is you put the plate, that white plate, on the power supply first and then insert it into the case. I went ahead and I got the main cable ran over to the motherboard. I also routed 2 cables here for the video card. I did like this kind of cage here for the power supply. It's got a nice cutout here, especially since we relocated that video card riser. It's going to help keep those cables neat. Another thing I noticed while I was doing this, I did connect this riser incorrectly. There was no instructions that were included with the actual case, so I was kind of doing everything just by what I thought was right. Things just weren't fitting together correctly though. They didn't look right. Something just seemed off. So I actually got on EVGA's website and they do have a PDF available on how to correctly install this. Why they don't include that with the case, I don't know. That's kind of silly in my opinion. If you don't know what you're doing, you're just going to be frustrated and give up on it, return it. Like I said, there's just some things about this case that could definitely be redone a little bit, and that's one of them. It actually required me putting 2 of those standoffs, like what you'd have on the motherboard, underneath this, and then this little rubber vibration deal, I guess, is to help keep from vibration down from the fans on the video card, and also to help support the center of this riser. So it actually lifts it up some. If you notice, I took that plate back off on the back here, because also in the instructions it says to attach it to the video card first, and then insert the video card in here. Makes it easier trying to put everything together. So, lesson learned. My fault. Again, shouldn't have to look online for answers on that. It should come with the case. Kind of silly. One other thing I'm going to show you here really quick is what I was talking about, that mess up here with this RGB controller. If you can see the mess of wires that's up there, and I don't even have that full. There's still more connections on there to be able to connect RGB, LEDs, strips if you wanted to, more RGB fans. There's a total of 4 of the headers, and then 2 of the, you can't really see from up here, but you can see the solder connections here. There's 4 headers here for the RGB, and then there's also 2 for the, like if you have RGB fans. So I mean, there's a lot that goes on this controller card, and it's just a huge pain in the butt trying to get to all that. I kept having the wires pop loose while I was trying to route this stuff, so kind of a pain. On the back side here, I did go ahead and I got that serial ATA cable ran along with the power connector for that serial ATA drive. Also the CPU has a 8-pin connector that runs all the way up and around, and then I got that main one zip tied as well. I've got this about as clean as I can get it back here. Like I said, with kind of the way that some of this is done, especially this HD audio header, it's just not long enough. If the HD audio was located in a different spot on this main board, closer to the, I guess, the back of it, or front of it, however you want to view it, it might reach it perfectly fine, but being that it's all the way back here by where your expansion slots are, it just isn't long enough. So I mean, that's something that EVGA definitely needs to look at as well. So just feedback on the case. Love the case itself. I think it looks aesthetically pleasing. It's really, a very clean case. Even with almost everything installed, you can see how open this is still here. There's room down here for a water pump to go. There's room here for a reservoir if you're doing a custom loop. But the drawbacks on it, such as the spacing, the tightness of some of these cables, and just trying to get to different things on here and the instructions that it didn't come with, really detract from it. So I mean, out of a 10, if I gave it like a 10-star rating, I'd give it a 6. I mean, it's a nice case, but I've seen better, especially for the price of this case. The case I did in the original video, that Corsair carbide, that is another case that cost-wise is about the same as this, but it's a heck of a lot bigger. And again, it still has expansions for CD drives, DVD drive, whatever you want to put in there, and it's twice as big as this case. So I mean, airflow-wise, yeah, this one's nice, but that one still is really good as well. So I have a hard time justifying, paying full price for this case. I don't think it's worth it. There's better cases out there on the market. So take it as you will, EVGA. If you read or if you see this, you hear about this, please make some changes. Especially if you want this geared towards the enthusiasts, you need to fix some of that stuff. It's not good, okay, guys? So let's finish up what we got going here. There's not a lot left. We're almost done, you guys. Like I said, I went ahead and routed the power supply and got the cables connected that I know I'm going to need. There's very minimal cables that I'm actually going to need on this power supply. The only thing I needed was the 2 PCI Express power connectors and that add-on cable for the serial ATA drive. Now that's also powering that serial ATA connector for this RGB header here. If you remember right, this required 1 connector on there to power everything. So that's good to go there. So what we're going to do is go ahead, and this is the video card. It is a EVGA, as you can tell I like EVGA, GeForce 980 Titanium. It is the super clocked edition. It uses the ACX 2.0 cooling. It's a lot better than the standard basically vanilla release cards. Cooling wise, it does really good. I've used this model card in my computer for the last couple of years. I actually finally burned it out about 6 months ago, so I warrantied it. This is the actual warranty card. I used it for about 2 weeks in my computer before I did my upgrade. So I know this card works. It works really well, actually. So I'm not going to complain. It's a very beautiful looking card. It does not have RGB to it, anything. So I mean, depending on the cards that you get, you could have a really flashy looking card in the front here with all kinds of lights and stuff going. So on that aspect, it's a drawback. Yeah, it doesn't have that, but I still think it's a very beautiful card. It's going to really look nice when it's going too. So like I said, that bracket, I did go ahead and take it off. We're going to go ahead and mount it now. Now, like I had talked to you guys before, when mounting this bracket, it technically is made for a 2-slot type mount. 3-slot mount is going to be too wide, so it's not going to fit quite right. And another complaint I have about this is when relocating this, do you notice the gap that you have in there? That is actually intentionally left like that by EVGA. Why they do that, I'm not quite sure. I mean, they've actually offset this brace. If you look at this riser cable, it does not come straight down. It actually is moved this way just a hair. It's off-centered. So if they would have moved that where it would natively sit and redesign that bracket a little bit, you would have that video card flush with the back. Now I'm sure the reason they did that was in case you did have a bit wider of a card, you could fit it in there. But the problem you're going to run into with that is if it is wider, it's going to hit on this brace right here. So I mean, in my opinion, it doesn't really make too much sense. But again, some design flaws that I think they could iron out if they made a version 2 of this case. Just some slight tweaks that they could make. It would make it look a lot better. I think on this brace here, if they added that in just like I said, make it so that either this is cut out more or the hole itself is cut larger so that it can accommodate for some of those 3-slot cooling configurations that they have out there, such as on my 2080. That's a 3-slot, so putting it in here, it looked kind of funky, okay? But I don't like the aspect that that leaves such a big gap, because when it comes to the cooling, it's going to blow most of it out, but it still has a tendency to blow some back inward towards the other components, and I just don't want to see the fact that it could blow that heat right back in and cause overheating issues later on. But such is life, so we live with it. I'm going to go ahead and get this connected on here. Now from the pictures it showed this white brace going underneath the brace for the video card, which is going to be correct because it's threaded. Now I'm not going to attach it completely here. I'm not going to tighten it just because I want to have a little bit of wiggle room to be able to adjust it as I need to left and right. But we're going to go ahead, slide this in. And right down here where that riser slot is, we're going to make sure we line up these gold fingers. That's what's going to slide into the slot. And we're going to give it a firm push into place, make sure that that lock is engaged. Also, we want to look over here, and you'll see where those slot connectors kind of slip down into the actual power supply cage there to help hold it in place. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and get this screwed into place. And once I have this in place, then I'll come back and tighten up that screw for this video card. I just need to grab one more screw here. I gotta remember which box or bag I put in here. There it is. Now, I always recommend keep these extra screws for later. You never know if you add something onto your computer, you might need one. I probably have 300 or 400 of these screws laying around just from past computer builds. I mean, I've got silver screws, black screws, gray screws, gold colored screws. So I mean, I've got tons and tons of these things laying around here. So I mean, it's not like I use every last one of them that comes with these cases, or motherboards, or cards, or anything else. I've got plenty of extras. So that's one thing I will say. Don't worry about trying to keep every last one of them. But they're definitely nice to have in case. I've got that nice and tight now. As you can see, that's held in place really well. Like I said, I pre-routed these cables here, and I'm going to bring them up around the back side of this to keep that front looking clean. Now it uses a 6-pin and an 8-pin. The way these cables are designed is they're 6+2. So since the first cable I only need 6, I'm going to kind of hold that back, plug it in, make sure it seats and locks. The second one, I'm going to combine that 2 onto there, give you that 8-pin that you need. Get that locked into place. That's everything's tight. I'm going to go ahead and push this excess back in here. And that is the build. So that's what that's going to look like on the inside. Again, like I said, this whole area here is still clear, so you could put your water cooling stuff in here. If you had some lighting stuff, an LCD panel or something you want to put in there. I've seen some really fancy ones where they have an LCD panel that has a display showing all your temperatures, your fan speeds, message of the day, what game you're playing. I mean, all sorts of different things that people have put in their computers. As I get a little bit more advanced in my programming classes I'm taking, I may do something like that just as a trial and error kind of thing to learn how to do it. It's something I'll see in the future. I don't know. If I do something like that, though, I'll definitely record it and throw it on YouTube for you guys so you can see it. I mean, it's nice to be able to show it off to get feedback and opinions on what people think. But other than that, the computer itself is pretty much done. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and reassemble all the panels, get everything put back together here, and then we'll get this plugged in and fired up and make sure that it actually turns on. As long as everything turns on, we are good to go. But that is the build. Alright guys, so we're back. We've got everything reassembled here. We've got all the panels back on. Again, putting this top panel on here, not a huge fan of how it connects. It's really, really, really stiff trying to push that in place. With that being plastic, I can tell that's going to stress that over time and it's probably going to end up breaking. They do offer an extended warranty on this. It comes with a 3-year warranty on this case. So if something happens, the glass gets broken, a panel breaks, you strip something out, they cover that. It's 3 years that comes included with it. I can bump that up to 5 years with a $10 extended warranty, or up to 10 years with a $20 extended warranty. Something like this, being that this is tempered glass, I might do that, especially given that it is going to my younger daughter. If something were to happen and she breaks the case or one of the glass panels on here, it might be actually worth having that to be able to get it replaced. Now they do offer, just like with their video cards and their main boards, where you can pay extra to have it cross-shipped. It's their premium plan, but it's like $60 for that. And on something like a case, I'm not going to do that. I mean, that's a third of the cost of what this case is brand new, plus the warranty. I mean, you're looking at $80. That doesn't even make sense. So I'm not going to do that. I will probably buy the warranty. I have 90 days to buy that extended warranty, so more than likely I'm going to go ahead and do that. But I got everything put back together here. I got the plastic taken off here, so there are no fingerprints. This is about the cleanest it'll probably ever be. Because you guys know how it is with glass cleaner. You try to clean it, no matter what, you always end up with a streak somewhere. So this is the finished product. I went ahead and I ran power to it really quick here. I am going to go ahead and turn it on because I'm interested in seeing just how this looks inside, and I want to make sure that everything actually powers up. The hard drive that I put in here, I scavenged out of her old computer. It does already have an OS on it. It's also AMD based, so I could probably leave it as is and just do a reinstall over top of the Windows and be perfectly fine with it. That way she doesn't lose all of her files. There wasn't a huge difference between her old main board, which was the Crosshair 3, and this board, the Crosshair 5, other than one's an AM2 and this one's an AM3. But driver-wise, I believe they're all the same drivers, so I shouldn't have to really worry about much. It should be a pretty easy boot in. So I'll look at it and see performance. If needed, I'll go ahead and reinstall Windows. Normally, if it's my computer, I would wipe it and just reinstall. But with hers, I know she's got a lot of games on there that she doesn't want to take a chance of losing. And I'm not going to lie, I'm feeling kind of, okay with doing that with this, just because it's not trying to squeak out every last bit of performance like I am on mine. So we should be fine. But moment of truth, we're going to go ahead and turn it on. EVGA button lights up. We have power. You can see the RGB fan spinning up there. You can see the video card. It does have the light up EVGA logo on the top of the video card. I mean, I won't call it or RGB. It doesn't have anything on the front of the card. So that was what I was talking about when I said it didn't have any type of light up. It does on the top though, so I guess I can't really say it doesn't have any. You can see the two white fans here in the front, so those are lit up nicely. I can't see them very well through the front here with the lights on and stuff. I mean, I can when I put my hand in front of it, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to shut the lights off here so we can see how that looks in the dark. All right, give us 1 second. I'm going to turn off this light on this camera here. Okay, we're back. We're shooting low light here now, you guys. As you can see, try to block this light on this fish tank. Okay, so you can see the front now. You can see the fans through the front of the case. Inside the case as well, you can really make out the lighted LEDs in there, the EVGA logo. It's hard to see it through this tempered glass on the front, so I'm going to pop it off really fast here. Again, this is something that EVGA could do a little bit better. Do you remember that EVGA logo that was at the top here on the front of the case? You can't even see it. But I'll bet you once we pop this off, it's nice and clear. So I mean, technically you could run this with no front panel on. Not that I'm a huge fan of doing that, but you could technically run it just like this. That way you can see that nice EVGA logo. You can see those lighted fans. But that kind of defeats the whole purpose of it. Plus, noise-wise, it's quite a bit louder with that open like that. I can really hear the fans a lot more. Overall, it's not terrible, but I don't know, that's something that I may have to think about. But they should have taken that logo, and if they would have pushed it forward more, or even left that uncovered by the glass, maybe had it higher and the glass a little bit shorter, so you can see that EVGA logo, that would really show off their branding. I don't know why you would try to hide it underneath a glass panel. It just kind of seems a little silly to me. But that's just me, my opinion. EVGA, if you want to listen to this, please, by all means, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to give you feedback on this stuff. I'm sure you've already heard some of it. Anybody else has had these same experiences? If you have this case, feel free to leave some comments. I think this would definitely be something that EVGA needs to fix. But other than that, the build is complete. We're going to go ahead and get everything installed here now and get her up and running. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. If you like this, please like and subscribe. Leave me some comments. And I hope you guys have great holidays.